Everybody, it's Chad with Nobody Else's Auto. We're up in the rafters of an old building again doing some digging. And we just came across something. We're getting ready to dig it out. So I wanted to get it videoed so we can check it out as we dig it out. This building that we were in was a multitude of different things over the years. It was a Kaiser Fraser dealer. It was a tire shop. It was a body shop. All kinds of automotive related businesses have been in this building over the years. The building itself was an old World War II building that was actually originally at the air base here in Great Bend, Kansas, moved into town and was turned into a multitude of different automotive businesses over the years. So it's super dark up here. We're gonna try to get a little bit of footage as to exactly where this stuff is at and what we found, and then we'll show it to you when we get it dug out. So here we are, we're up in this attic in the rafter of this super old building looking around, and that's when we come across this stack of tin. Now, not 100% sure what we're going to get into. That one looks like it says shop on it, but like I said, this thing was a multitude of different automotive related businesses over the years. You can see it's awful dark up here. We got just a little bit of light to kind of barely see where we're at and what we're up against. But we're going to get these things dug out. It looks intriguing. It looks interesting. So let's get these things dug out and see what they look like. Well, there they are. We've got them all dug down and got them all laid out. Elliott Paint and Body Shop. So we'll have to do some research to see what years this was a paint and body shop. But don't know how long those have been up here buried in the rafters, but it's been an awful long time. So, but that's what it spells back from when this building was a body shop years and years ago. Well, we've got these down. Definitely a lot of chipping on these things, but at least it's all definitely still readable. Have to get them cleaned up and try to preserve them the best we can. Near as we can tell, they believe this building was turned into a tire shop in the early 60s. The body shop was in here just prior to that. So these were probably put up sometime in the 1950s and then taken down in the early 60s, 61, 62, probably somewhere in that vicinity. So we're guessing these have probably been up in the rafters for right around 60 years, and they are signs that were done sometime in the 50s. So anyway, cool pieces. Glad we were able to dig them out. Hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned. Always more cool stuff coming up. Well, we've got this sign down. We've got it rinsed off. Now, like we saw earlier and what we can really see now, we do have a lot of paint loss, but fortunately we can still make out the whole sign. Obviously not a lot you can do to preserve these other than clean them up best you can. So that's all we did, just soap and water, big thick soft wash mitt, and got the dirt and the grime off of them to clean them up to see what we've got. Now, obviously, when you seen us digging these out, you couldn't see much. Of course, I couldn't see much, but fortunately, the good part about the project, I only fell through the ceiling one time. So I only had to replace one ceiling tile digging this thing out. But one interesting side note about this piece, this building and this business was actually is part of Shayla's family. So when we pulled this out, we're preserving this as part of their family history as well. And that's why we wanted to save this thing. Now, this is a big, big sign. These panels are 3 foot by 8 foot, I believe. So that would make this thing 6 by 24. It's a big sign. If you can't tell by the way it takes up a good chunk of the front of the building. Now, this was all hand done. This is a local sign right here to Great Bend, Kansas. The sign company actually signed it. The New Art Sign Company of when this was done. So we do have that as well. Now, like we talked about before, we were trying to guesstimate the age of this sign. The building was a Kaiser Fraser dealer up until 53. We know it became a tire shop in the early 60s. So we're guesstimating in 54, 55 is probably when they went strictly to a body shop after the Kaiser Fraser dealer. So we're guessing this was probably done around 54, 55, was on the building for 5, 6, 7 years of the early 60s, and then it was taken down and put up in those rafters until we just pulled it back out into the daylight and got it cleaned up. Now, another interesting piece about this, on top of everything else, the fact that it's a family building, the fact that it's a local business, the fact we still have the sign painter's signature on here. One thing that's even super cooler that I didn't realize, and I was actually wrong a little earlier in the video, I said this was hand painted tin. It's actually not tin, it's aluminum. Now, why would there be big, huge sheets of aluminum laying around to paint signs on? Aluminum was a more pricey material and harder to get. Great Bend, Kansas was actually a B-29 base. So there were probably a lot of sheets of aluminum around in the early 50s as war surplus. Now let's take a look at the back of one of these. We can see the front of these where they were painted on, but let's flip one of these up. Now, this metal seems to be about the correct thickness, and we look at the back of this, and it sure looks just about identical to what airplane skin would have looked like back then. All 6 pieces of this are big, huge, flat sheets of aluminum. So obviously not what was typically used to paint signs, because that would have been a more pricey material. However, after World War II, when there were tons of surplus, and anywhere there was a base, there was typically a lot of surplus. So to top this all off and wrap this all together on top of all the other coolness factors is, I believe this was surplus B-29 skin that this sign was painted on. The building that this came off of was actually from the air base. They took it apart, they moved it into town. That's what they made the shop out of. And we believe they made the sign out of surplus B-29 skin. So even though this sign's a little bit rough around the edges, it's showing its age. Fortunately, it's been preserved well enough we can make out what it said. And there's a whole lot of coolness into this thing, all rolled in together in this one piece of history to preserve this one little piece of the town. So super cool piece, super excited to add it to our sign collection. We're gonna get it moved in the shop with the rest of them and keep it out of the weather and hopefully preserved as best we can when you're dealing with these old painted signs that are almost 70 years old and obviously have some paint loss. But obviously the objective is to preserve them the best we can, and that's what we're going to try to do. So if you like this old stuff, you like cars, you like memorabilia, be sure to check out the rest of the channel. That's what we do here, and that's what we enjoy. We got a lot more stuff, more cool stuff coming. Hope you like this bit. Stay tuned. We got more cool stuff coming up.